Hello, my name is Paula Schmidt, and I'm only smiling because my mom says I look better that way. I should actually be crying because my country, Brazil, has ceased to be a democracy. It is now a judiciary tyranny. And it's the worst type of tyranny because it only hunts down the dissidents of the establishment. The friendlies are allowed everything. Now, I want to tell you something that it will be hard to believe if you've been misinformed by the Consensus Inc. I call Consensus Inc. the informal but well-oiled cartel of single thought and dogma formed by mega corporations, old media, hedge funds, academia, and big tech. Lula, supposedly left wing, is actually the biggest middleman for the largest banks and monopolistic corporations in Brazil and abroad. One should have suspected it already. You don't get the support of Time magazine and CFR if you're anti-establishment. But here is an example that I use to save you time. It's a list of campaign donors based on official data from the Electoral Court in Brazil. It shows that the biggest bankers in Brazil chose to support Lula, the left-wing candidate, not Bolsonaro. Many people don't know, but when Lula decided to take what we owed to the International Monetary Fund and transfer that debt to the national banks, our interest rates on our debt increased many times. That's right. We are no longer beholden to the IMF, but we are beholden manyfold to other private banks. Nice, huh? This explains why all of the bankers in this list gave their money to Lula and other left-wing candidates, not to Bolsonaro. Lula is also the guy who has said he wants to separate families if children are not vaccinated. Lula himself said he would take many times, many injections on the forehead, as long as it was free. That's what they say. They pretend it's free when it's actually paid by all of us. And the left, to which I used to belong because I belong to a left that doesn't exist anymore, this left has become the middleman, the money transferer of thousands, millions of taxpayer money to a very tiny cabal of friends. That's what they do. They work like a type of a Western Union, taking money from millions, sending to just the little group of chaps. So, Lula is the authorized dealer and will be, you will see, if he takes over, he will be the best authorized dealer of the greatest, largest monopolistic corporations. Big tech is also with Lula. Most famous actors, singers, and celebrities were also with Lula and graciously announced their vote for this anti-establishment man. This is what I call the pyramid of consensus. People on the top defend for money while they will convince people on the bottom to defend for free. Here is how the support on the top has been purchased. This investigative news article shows that Global TV, one of the largest media networks in the world and an effective tool of mass formation, was paid 10.2 billion reais in 17 years. That's right. The mega salaries of famous actors and journalists now supporting Lula were paid with my money and the money of all Brazilian taxpayers. That's how you buy media support. And here I'm going to show you how you lose media support. You do like Bolsonaro and reduce that amount of money to a tenth of what it used to be. That's why the newsroom at Globo celebrated the victory of Lula. Don't take my word for it. Look at it. Now think with me. The biggest, most effective mouthpiece of establishment hugged and cried with happiness when Lula got elected. It's moving. But here is something even more sinister, which is the unprecedented, judicial, and unjust support Lula has gotten from the Supreme Court. Here is what the now Supreme Judge Alexandre de Moraes had to say about Lula's party a few years ago. Listen to his own words.
Governo corrupto, que foi colocado para fora do Brasil pela corrupção, pela falta de vergonha na cara de quem roubava bilhões e bilhões. Se, ao invés de roubar bilhões, tivesse investido na segurança, se ao invés de desviar dinheiro para construir porto em Cuba, tivessem investido em presídio, nós estaríamos muito melhor. Obrigado.
This man, along with other judges, made it illegal to quote things like this, or even to quote Lula during the election. I kid you not. Many social media accounts were suspended after they quoted Lula himself in things like this Playboy interview, for example. It's an old interview. Lula was not even a politician then. He was a union leader. So the magazine asked who Lula admired, and in his list was a guy, what's his name? Hitler. Yes. So Lula explains that he didn't admire Hitler for his ideas. No, it was his mettle. I'm going to quote what he said. Hitler had that which I admire in a man, the fire to set himself to do something and try doing it. This type of memory was considered to be out of context and was largely banned during the campaign. Journalists were persecuted and demonetized for republishing this interview. Another thing we could not say was the charge made by vice presidential candidate Mara Gabrilli, a woman who lives on a wheelchair. She claims that Lula paid 12 million reais to have his name not associated with the assassination of Celso Daniel, a leader in the Workers' Party, who was tortured and killed after he threatened to reveal a corruption scheme. Mara Gabrilli knew this well because her father was involved in negotiations with the same group of people. After this assassination, at least 7 other people were killed or died mysteriously, including the waiter who served the victim's bodyguard the night he was kidnapped. Who is Alexandre de Moraes? According to PT, Moraes was the former lawyer of the largest criminal organization in South America. But this is ancient times. It's from all the way back 2016. At that time also, PT said that Moraes was paid a bribe by a company being investigated for corruption. Again, not me saying that. Workers' Party, Lula's party. Today, the same judge is sending to jail people who criticize Lula. How did these guys become so buddy-buddy? I don't know, but here is a scene you will never see in any decent democracy. It shows Lula greeting the Supreme Court judge with little slaps on the face. I don't know about you, but I've only seen such a thing in movies, and they had Al Pacino in it. Fredo surely didn't break Lula's heart because he keeps on banning thousands of social media accounts until today, effectively banning from the public square all voices criticizing Lula. And here is another Ray Liotta moment for you. Lula greets another judge with face slaps. Do you know who this man is? He is the guy appointed to oversee the elections just 1 month before the first round.